welcome everyone to this evening's program. We have an interesting event for you. We have Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan, who will be accompanied by Aishwarya Harish, her daughter. You will see the events of the evening unfolding in due course. On behalf of the chairman of the CSMVS and the trustees, and on behalf of the Executive Committee of the Museum Society, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our two delightful, as I called them earlier, Saraswati and Lakshmi, in our midst today. Thank you so much, Dr. Jayashree, and thank you, Aishwarya, for readily agreeing to this request that was made to you both by Dr. Anita Rane Kothari and Dr. Prachi Jariwala, both members of our executive committee, who have introduced this program to our society. So thank you so very, very much. This evening, Jason has asked me to say a few words about the society. The Museum Society was established almost 6 decades ago, and we have devoted these 6 decades to doing what we know best, which is to organize lectures both within the museum and as outreach programs outside the museum. We cover a variety of topics related to art, architecture, environment, dance, music, clay modeling for our children, and demonstrations. We are very fortunate that we've had over these last 60 years a very, very dedicated band of members. We are an NGO. We give our services gratis to our beloved museum and to other museums as well who join us, and other organizations who join us, like the Maritime Museum, the Bombay Local History Society, universities from within the country and without. One of the fortes that we have is we do a lot of work for children. Children who we bring to the museum, who can come to the museum, but more importantly, our volunteers go out, really outreach children who have no access to visit a museum. So our activities are taken to them in their neighborhoods, in their areas, by a very, very able band of members, headed by a senior, very senior member who many of you who visit CMSVS may have seen, Mrs. Marina Datta. She has inspired us, and she has inspired generations of younger people to follow and learn from her activities. We also do interesting things. We go on site visits. We have gone as far as Ladakh, parts of Rajasthan, the Northeast, down south to Sri Lanka, as well as within Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Kerala, Madhya Pradesh. These trips that we take are really educational, but they are a lot of fun. We discuss what we're going to see, what we're going to hear, how we're going to dress, if we are in a particular region, and even the food that we will be eating whenever we visit places. And we always, always have a scholar as a guide. Either they join us from Bombay and bring us back to Bombay, or they join us in their various locations, as we indeed have had excellent speakers in Khajuraho who talk to us not only about the temple and the temple architecture, but also take us to places like Panna, the game park, and to Kalinjar, which is literally in the center of India. And in case you're wondering, these trips are really meant for all budgets. So they're wholeheartedly looked forward to by our members and their guests. And we hope that once the pandemic is over, we will be able to travel again. As I said, we work very, very closely with the museum, in particular, the CSMVS, right from the time of Dr. Moti Chandra, Dr. Gorakh Shekhar, Dr. Kalpana Desai, and now with Dr. Sabyasachi Mukherjee. So with these few words about the museum, I would like to say something about our volunteer who's going to be carrying the program forward this evening. And she will introduce Dr. Jayashree and Dr. Aishwarya for the evening, but I want to say something about our very own Dr. Prachi Jariwala. She's an accomplished Indian classical dancer. She is empaneled under the distinguished ICCR program as a solo Odissi performer. She has obtained a PhD from the University of Mumbai in ancient Indian culture, and she has numerous original dance compositions based on Indian scriptures to her credit, for which she has found critical acclaim. And between us all, she helps us select very good motifs on our invitation card. And this one is truly representative. You'll be hearing more about it as the evening progresses. The 87th Karana Karihasta from the Chidambaram Temple in Tamil Nadu. So thank you very, very much, Prachi, Dr. Jayashree, Aishwarya, and last but not the least, my beloved, young, dynamic technical team, ably led by Jason Johns. And today we have Aishwarya, Mrinalini, and Yashraj. Thank you so much for coming literally twice a week now with our programs getting popular and helping us through navigating the Zoom and other issues. So no more from me. I'm delighted to welcome everyone here this evening. And Prachi, the screen is all yours. Enjoy the evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste to all. A very warm welcome. Thank you so much, Firoza, for that lovely, very generous words that you said. Thank you so much. And it is indeed my pleasure to be here, my honor to be here. And I'm very, very glad that I'm a part of the Museum Society and the Executive Committee, and I can do something for us. A few words about Dr. Srimati Jayashree Rajagopalan. Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan is a very renowned Bharatanatyam dancer, teacher, choreographer, and a research scholar. She represents the fourth generation of a family of artists. She is the foremost disciple of Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam and has performed extensively in India and abroad. She's the founder director of Nritta, an academy of performing arts in Mumbai, imparting training in the Bharata Nrityam style ever since 1976. She has choreographed several dance dramas, thematic group ensembles, solo numbers, and many of them are very well researched to connect our present with the past. She has presented papers in several national and international seminars. She has conducted workshops in India and abroad on various aspects of dance, theatre, painting, art, etc. Her doctoral thesis is on Aharya Abhinay. It is from the Natyasastra. Her postdoctoral research includes the Indal Research Fellowship, Asiatic Society of Mumbai, for her dissertation on role and relevance of the Lasyangas of Natyasastra, a gender perspective, and the Tata Harris Fellowship for the impact of Natyasastra in Ajanta art. I think we are very, very fortunate to have her this evening. And she's going to be talking about, basically in India, every human activity is considered an art or kala. The tenets and rules of every kala has been codified very scientifically in Shastras. The Natyasastra is one of the earliest extant treatise on the art of dramaturgy, involving drama, dance, music, and other allied arts like architecture, painting, and sculpture. There are 108 basic dance movements known as Nritta Karanas, which are recorded in it, which were common for both Europe and Asia. These have been sculpted along with the relevant slokas of Natyasastra in the Chidambaram Temple of Lord Nataraja. These, which went into oblivion for about 600 years, were revived and brought back by her guru, Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam. And I think if she is here today, my humble pranams to Guru Padma Subrahmanyam from all of us here. We'll be very, very honored if she's here and listening to us. So let us take a peep into the origin of the Nritta Karanas, their codification in text and sculpture, their revival and performance, and their identification to the present day regional classical styles. And we are very fortunate to have Jayashree ji's daughter, Srimati Aishwarya Harish, to do some beautiful demonstrations so that we can correlate the sculpture and the dance. A very warm welcome to both our performers and academicians today. And I pass on the screen to you.
Om Sat Guru Bhyo Namaha. Namaskar. Thank you, Prachi, for that introduction. I must say my association with the museum has been from 1976, when I relocated myself in Mumbai, and it has been a center of great support for me throughout my research, through its artifacts, its library, and the documentary films that it has. And I'm so happy to be here to continue this relationship. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Feroza Godrej, the chairperson of the society, Dr. Anita Rani, and Dr. Prachi Jariwala, who have invited me here to share the knowledge that has been bestowed on me by my Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam. It is her path-breaking research and revival of the Nritta Karanas of Natyasastra that has created a new avenue of vocabulary for our dance, both classical and folk. It is because of this that she has imbued me with confidence to speak about the perennial performance of eternal beauty, the Nritta Karanas, which are codified in the Natyasastra several thousand of years back and have become the perennial performers of the Karanas through the sculptures in the temples. And of course, the joy, the eternal joy and beauty of performing the Karanas live. This has been possible because of the revival that my guru has undertaken and made a very, very unique contribution to the history of dance itself. There is one thing that we have to understand. In India, all methods of teaching have been very holistic. Shastra and Prayoga were never separated. That is, science and art or the performance was always integrated. All activities of human nature, whether it was performing arts or like dance, music, or the visual arts like painting, sculpture, or even the ordinary activity like farming and cooking, were all considered as artistic work of human nature. And every art was perfected and practiced so that they could be codified under analytical category, and this codification became the Shastra. This Shastra in turn became the handbook or the manual to understand this artistic activity. For instance, like you have the recipes of the cookbook, it becomes like a formula for you to follow. This is something that anybody can relate to. In the same way, every activity, and as it becomes finer and finer, even uh, farming is Krishi Shastra. So this has given rise to so many Shastras, like the Dharma Shastra, the Artha Shastra of politics, the Shilpa Shastra, the Yoga Shastra, and we have the Natya Shastra for the dramatic art. So now to understand the Natya Shastra, in India, all learning is considered as Veda or knowledge. Any kind of knowledge that you acquire is called Vidya. And that is why even today we are able to relate ourselves to the Vedas. The Natya Shastra is the oldest extant treatise on the science of the art of dramaturgy. This Natya Veda, that is this knowledge, was revealed to Bharata Muni by Lord Brahma, and Bharata Muni codified this, systematized it, and called it the Natya Shastra, or the scientific treatise on the art of dramaturgy. One thing I would like to tell everybody who has joined here today, that when we talk of receiving any art from divinity, let us not brush it off as myth. It is not, because it has been India where we have had so many rishis, so many munis. They are known as seers because they could see. They had the divine vision. They knew how to harness the external energy and also internalize and energize themselves to such an extent that they could see beyond their human eyes. And they have been experiences even very recently for people to see divinity. And so, my dear friends, when we say that it was revealed by Brahma or Shiva or Vishnu, please don't call it myth, because it is not. It is a knowledge that has been revealed, and so it becomes the Veda or the knowledge itself. This Natya Shastra is in the Samskrita language and is composed in 36 chapters. Natya was a composite art made up of drama, dance, and music. All knowledge of the world is contained in Natya. This is said in the Natya Shastra itself. The shloka says there is nothing that is not there in Natya. All arts and crafts, methods of learning, interdisciplinary understanding, creative activity at all levels, all these are found in the Natya Shastra. And of course, Natya itself is represented as Anukarana. That is, it is the representation of what you see in the world. It is known as Anukarana, literally means to imitate, that is to follow what you see around you. So it is known as Lokanukarana, that is, you try to replay what you see around you, so that it is the story of man. It is the story of his connection with divinity. It is the story of his connection with nature that we keep on enacting. And hence, it is a mode of enlightenment and entertainment. So Natya Shastra is the Anukarana, becomes Anukirtana because we glorify what we see in the world. We make the clouds dance, the creepers dance, the birds sing. All these are glorification of what we see. And then Anudarshana is we represent all this. So these are very small words which convey a lot of meaning to the viewer and to understand what is Natya Shastra. And the efficacy of Natya is it gives righteousness, longevity, because it is a physical as well as mental fitness. It gives wellness, mental enhancement, so buddhi abhivriddhi, and proper values of life. Today's topic, though Natya Shastra covers so many topics, including the building of the theater, the land which has to be chosen, the shape of the theater, the masks, wigs. You may think these are all very recent development. No, Natyasastra has mentioned about all these things, the cosmetic makeup, and so on and so forth. So many aspects. But today's concentration is going to be on the Nritta Karana. That is, these are the 108 basic units of dance movements. Till about the middle of the last century, people thought that the Nritta Karanas were mere poses. We will come to that as we start the demonstration. But they have been proved as unit of dance movements by my guru, who has brought it forth to the viewers, to the practitioners, to the rasikas, that Karana comes from the root krin, which means kriya. You all understand what is kriya. Kriya is action. So any kind of activity is called Karana. And here it has a specific identification as Nritta Karana, and hence they are not poses, but they are unit of dance movements. It is given in the Natyasastra that these were all common to the entire Jambudvipa, which was Eurasia, that is Europe and entire Asia. Even the Asia that we have at that time was a very large landmass. That is how we find a lot of similarity from the ballet dancers to the Japanese dance. All these we can identify against the background of the Natyasastra. Coming back to the Karanas, the Nritta Karanas are made up of three components. One is the static element, and that is called as sthana. That is a particular posture of the body. And the dynamic aspect of it is the chari, that is the movements of the entire leg, involving right from the root of the leg till the toes. So those are called charis, and they give the dynamism, the movement to the Karana. And Nritta are movements involving the entire arm. So when the extremities are completely being used and a static posture is constant. So there is the beautiful representation of what you can call as sthiti and gati. Sthiti is static, gati is movement, dynamic movement. And both these are embedded in the Nritta Karanas. These Nritta Karanas are, of course, made up of various parts of the body, which Bharata analyzes as anga and upanga, that is the major limbs and the minor limbs, and he talks about how these have to be repeatedly trained as vyayama. Vyayama means exercise. So you keep on training each part individually as vyayam, and then they're all put together. The components are put together. Then he says, once you are there put together as karanas, they should be practiced to such an extent that you totally forget about the body movement and you rise to the higher level of sattvika abhinaya, or that which touches your mind and hence touches the mind of the viewers. So these karanas are enhanced with rechakas. Rechakas are very subtle movement, which you cannot explain at all. If I say you move your hand like this, then it would be, there are Nritta Hastas, the Hasta Karanas, Apaveshtitam, Udveshtitam, Vyavartitam, Parivartitam. These are all nuances. These are all called Rechakas. Of course, Bharata gives 4 types of Rechakas: the Griva Rechaka, the Kati Rechaka, or the movement of the hip. I'll ask Aishwarya to demonstrate this when we start showing the demonstration. And then the Pada Rechakas and then the Hasta Rechakas. There are only 4 Rechakas, but if you see logically, all these Rechakas completely vibrate through the body, and that is why the Karana is so fluid, at the same time absolutely in symmetry and proportion. You have to maintain the Saushtava where the body is held up straight. A combination of the Karanas creates Angaharas. The Angaharas can be explained as a hara, that is an entire uh, necklace or stringing together of movements. These are similar to the Korve atavis of the Bharatanatyam dance style. And of course, we have so many bowls in the other styles, and those are all can be identified as Angaharas, combination of various Karanas. And the Karanas can be performed in Uddata and Sukumara. That is, Uddata Prayoga is forcefully graceful. That is, grace is never sacrificed at any point of time. But there is a force that can create a very graceful movement. Very often, Shiva is shown as vigorously thumping and dancing. It is never there. It says right in the beginning that Shiva's dance was so beautiful, full of rechakas and angaharas. So it is the forcefully graceful movement. It's called Uddhata, which is now known as Tandava. And the gently graceful is known as Sukumara, which after the medieval period came to be known as Lasya. So what we call as Tandava and Lasya can be identified as Uddhata and Sukumara. And the same Karanas can lend themselves to both according to the need of the patra, the character. These Karanas became a source of inspiration for all the figures which were sculpted in the temple. And whether they were dance figures or they were just common human activity, even like putting a tilaka or writing a letter or removing a thorn, these are all common activities, but all these had the grace of posture which is described in the Natyasastra. The next one. Now, when we talk about, since this is specifically on Karana, I want first we dealt with the textual part of the Karana. The Karanas were codified in the Natyasastra thousands of years back. Let us understand one thing. Let us all try to understand the Indian calendar system. We have the Yuga theory. There are 4 yugas. The Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and Kali Yuga. Each yuga is for several thousands of years. And there is internal evidence in the Natyasastra, in the first chapter itself, which opens by saying that at the end of the Satya Yuga, in some texts, of course, it says Krita Yuga, both are the same. And in the beginning of Treta Yuga, the Devas approached Brahma to create a form of entertainment and uh, enlightenment. You know, it is Kridanekam. So it was like play. See the word. English also they say play, and in Natyasastra it says Kridanekam. That means that which can be played can be an enactment and entertainment. So when they approached him in the beginning of Treta Yuga. So friends, very often it is now mentioned that Natyasastra belonged to some period after the Common Era or some period before the Common Era. But tell me, how does that fit into Kali Yuga at all? It belongs to Treta Yuga. Let us understand that our Shastra has got evidence in the Shastra. So it was, in fact, there is Valmiki who wrote the Ramayana. He is also mentioned as one of the disciples of Bharata. So he was already completely, imbued with the knowledge of Natya through this learning. And that is how he could write the Mahakavya of Ramayana. If you read the Ramayana, then you would get, after having learned the Natyasastra, if you read the Ramayana, you will realize that there is so much to learn by a interdisciplinary study of these two manuscripts, these two texts. And we all, can anybody deny the fact that Rama belonged to the Treta Yuga and Krishna belonged to the Dwapara Yuga? So in that context, let us first understand that Natyasastra belongs to a period much earlier than that. So the Karanas were already recorded much, much earlier. Of course, in writing, it must have been in this Yuga, maybe. But you know how the Vedas were always learned by rote. It was always smriti. It had to be learned by heart. And that is how all knowledge has come down to us. That is the textual aspect of the Karanas. Now, how these Karanas have inspired the sculpture is something that we can say it has inspired the sculptures all over the country and far beyond. We have evidences in Far East, like Indonesia and other places, where Indian learning has spread so far. In fact, when we studied architecture and sculpture, that was known as Greater India. But here I want to come particularly to the Chola, the imperial Cholas, because the Karanas which may be there in the Odisha temples, in the Khajuraho temples, we have so many of them in Gujarat, but they are not systematically codified as it's given in the Natyasastra. So here we have the imperial Cholas as true academicians who created a visual libraries of the Nritta Karanas in the temples they built. So in fact, when my guru undertook her studies, there were 5 temples that she had identified having all the Karanas, but since the other 2 were much later in period, she's taken the Brihadishwara temple at Tanjavur belonging to the 11th century, Sarinpani Temple in Kumbakonam belonging to the 12th century, and the Nataraja Temple in Chidambaram belonging to the 13th century, which shows there is a continuity in practice. This system was prevalent because all these 3 temples have the codification of the Karanas, but the Chidambaram temple becomes most important because here it was it was the later Cholas who built the Chidambaram temple, and here they have given systematically one by one every Karana, one above the other, and on top of the Karana figure, the couplet that is there in the Natyasastra has been inscribed in the Grantha script. The Grantha script was a common script all over India, and that had more sounds than what we use in Hindi or in Tamil. So it was easy to inscribe the slokas of Natyasastra above these. So you can just see how they had planned that this art which we have received from Lord Brahma should be preserved for posterity in stone. So these became the perennial dancers. They were creating perennial performance of eternal beauty for the god who was enshrined in the temple. So the Chidambaram temple Karana sculptures, which are in the external Gopuram, became the main source, the secondary source for my guru to reconstruct the Karanas. But now we will come to knowing where these are placed in the temples. None of them were visible completely. Now let us go to the Brihadishwara temple. The Brihadishwara temple, why is it called Brihadishwara? Because Rajaraja Chola, the greatest of the Chola kings, from whose time we can say the golden period of culture in South started, wanted everything big for his god. So it was the biggest Shikara, the tallest Shikara, the biggest lingam, the biggest Nandi. It was a monolith Nandi that he got. And mind you, most of these stones were not available locally. So those were transported. And the biggest prakara, that is the space outside the temple. And in that way, this came to be known as Brihat Ishwara, the big temple as it is often known. In this, you can see that here you can see the Shikhara, and uh, there is an entrance in front over the yeah, here after the mandapa, the lower mandapa, on top of the lower mandapa, you can see small entrances into the Shikhara. If you enter that, there is a closed circumambulatory chamber, and it is in this chamber that he created the Karana figures. He got these commissioned there, and they are in a continuous form. That is, they run as a complete frieze all along the wall as you walk around and do a pradakshina of the linga which is there. And of course, the saddest part is that only 81 have been sculpted. That is, they are partially sculpted. They are not even completely finished, but they are absolutely dynamic, having 4 arms, which my guru has identified as, yeah, here you can see this is the inner circumambulatory over the tower, over the shrine. And that is my guru who is there during her research period. She would spend hours together in this inner chamber, studying every panel along with the Natyasastra shloka. Then, yeah, the next one. Here you can see how they come one after the other as though a continuous performance of the Karanas are being conducted here, and these have been identified as the Shiva figures because there are 4 arms, and he is shown with many of his attributes of Trishula and so forth. The 4 arms that you see here, she takes it to describe the animation of the hand movement. You can see 2 hands up there. It would go in this way. So the animation of the hand movements could be brought out by the 4 hands. We will see that even in Tala Pushpaputta in the demonstration. So this is how they are sculpted. You can see they are bas relief, that is very, very low relief. They are just coming out. Probably if it had been finished, then it would have come out a little more. But at that time, there was importance given to both bas relief and high relief, which we see outside. So here the sculptures, the Karana figures are seen like this. Then we go to the next temple. That is the Sarinpani Temple, which comes to the 12th century. Sarangapani is another name for Mahavishnu. This temple is dedicated to Lord Vishnu, but the Karana sculptures are found in the base of the Gopuram. In the base of the Gopuram, below that, in the base of the Gopuram, and with authentic proof, my guru has proved that these have been brought from another Shiva temple and placed here while the Gopuram was being built. And it could have been from the Dharasuram temple, which also belongs to about this period, and it where the Gopuram has fallen. So here we have, but these do not have the shloka above it, but the name of the Karana is given below with the number, but they are haphazardly placed. So we can make out that by the time the Karana had gone out of practice. The next one. Here you can see how the Karana sculptures have been just, the panels have just filled the places. But still it has its own beauty, even though they were all placed hither and thither. Then we come to the Chidambaram temple, Nataraja Temple at Chidambaram. This is the Gopuram, the East Gopuram, and you can see here such a big entrance. This entire entrance has got panels that you will see in the next one. Here, they go in this kind of vertical order, one above the other, and then again you come to the next lower panel. So the Karanas are completely, the 108 are beautifully carved, and the inscription, go to the next one. In this one, you can actually, here you can see a little bit on top, you can see the inscription. On top of the figure, the inscription is there to identify that this is this Karana. And if you knew the Brahmi script, you could actually understand, you can read the Natyasastra text from this temple. Then we go to the, I'm just taking you, I want to tell you that we saw all this in sculpture, but the revival and the reconstruction was an uphill task. It was like, there was nothing of theory that was being taught at that time, and rightfully so, because all the masters, all the acharyas were busy preserving the practical aspect of it. And so none of the theoretical aspect was known. So when Dr. Padma started her research, it was like, you read the Natyasastra and you don't understand anything. But it was the Abhinava Bharati, the commentary of the 11th century Kashmiri philosopher who has written a beautiful commentary. In fact, it is because of Abhinava Bharati that you are able to understand the Natyasastra. And as it is often said, the Natyasastra, the Abhinava Bharati also exists because of the Natyasastra, because that became its source for creating a commentary. And he gives us much more details. Actually, any kind of research cannot be undertaken by just reading the English translation. That is one thing that we should all understand. So she had to go through the original Natyasastra, the original text of the Abhinava Bharati, because Sanskritam is such a language that it can have a lot of extra meanings. One word can have more meanings. So it had to be interpreted according to the context, according to the a performer only can understand, not a theoretician or not a Vyakarankara. So it was learning the Samskrita, and here I've just taken one Karana called the Bhujanga Trasitam, and all these photographs I have taken from my guru's book. Her thesis was published, and because some of these photographs are impossible to get anywhere else, particularly of Brahmanan. And so correlated, I want to show this because when she started studying and when she discovered the Karana sculptures, she realized that these are all, they were different movements for the same Karana. Then it dawned on her that it was the frozen moment of that movement in that particular temple. So when she could put them together, the animation came out beautifully. And it is the Bhujanga Trasita. You can see the beginning of it in the Tanjavur temple. This right, you can see this is the Tanjavur temple where the lower hand is doing a Vyavartitam and the leg is turned at the side. And then in the Kumbakonam sculpture, the hand has come across as Karihasta. And then we go to the next one. In the Chidambaram one, the leg is already flapped in. And then it is released. As you can see in the Prambanan temple in Indonesia, which she discovered after she had reconstructed. But by divine grace, it proved to be true, and this is how the movement is recorded there. So you can very well understand how the Kara sculptures in the temple cannot be called as poses. They are movements, and every temple recorded some aspect of the movement. So here we have Bhujanga Trasita, and I will ask Aishwarya to show the movement, the animation. Yeah, you can stop here. So friends, I would like to call Aishwarya to demonstrate how you just saw the frozen moment of that movement in the sculpture. I will repeat those, she will show, and then she will demonstrate how it becomes a unit of movement based on the shloka of Natyasastra. Here, we will start with I'm just going to read the shloka. Many of you may not understand, but I will keep uh, translating every word. Kunchitam padam ukshipya. So, kunchitam padam ukshipya means the bent foot is lifted and it is put across. Trayashram uru, that is across the other thigh. Vivartite, that is, it is turned in. And then Kati Janu Vivarta, with the help of turning the hip and the knee, it is brought down. So, to understand this, you need the sculpture. So, here it is taken across, then it is bent, and the hip is twisted, and this is brought down as Agratala. So now we will just see the animation of the figures. In Tanjavur, we saw that the leg is raised with the Vyavartita Hasta. Vyavartita is where you turn your hand with the little finger towards the little finger inward. And so that is how it's given. You can so beautifully see the movement. It's almost moving, though it is taken in like this, because it's not possible to keep a static position like this. It's in movement. So that is the first posture. Then in Kumbhakonam, it is dropped across as Karihasta. This we get from Abhinav Bharati. Then it is flapped in like this in the Chidambaram sculpture, and it is brought down with both the hands opening up, as we saw in Brahmanan. Now, this was something, I don't know how my guru arrived at it, but it was just by divine grace. And I salute her for this, because this she identified as the movement of Nataraja, and this was authenticated by none other than Paramacharya, the 68th Shankaracharya of the Shankara Madam, who said that is known as Bhujanga Trasita. Your Nataraja pose is known as Bhujanga Trasita in the Shiva Tattva. So here we have the Bhujanga Trasita. Now she will just do an animation of the entire movement. Tam, tat, tat, din, na, tat, din, tat, ta, kitatatam, tat, tat, din, na, tat, din, tat, ta. So if you have to move, then you can move in the same direction. So you can move, she would move like this. Tam, tat, tat, din, na, tat, din, tat, ta. Tat, tat, din, na, tat, din, tat, ta. Tam, tat, tat, din, na, tam. Tat, tat, din, na, tam. Tat, tat, din, na, tam. So this is how it becomes animation, and the joy of performing this revival, the reconstruction, is amazing. So now I will take you through some more Karanas. We would be now she will show the Mayura Lalita Karana, which is the 80th, 80, 80th Karana, the Mayura Lalitam, in which in the Chidambaram temple, it is with the leg crossed at the back. That is, it's in the twisted position. No, that after turning, that is in Tanjavur, it is with Vrishchikapada, lifted. Mayura Lalitam, yes. And in Chidambaram, it is with the leg twisted like this. So when you connect these two positions, you get a continuous movement of the peacock moving by twisting its body, it twists its neck. So that is when the Anukarana becomes Anukirtana. You cannot exactly imitate, but you take inspiration and glorify that movement. So here we see the Mayura Lalitam. One, two, dim, ta, ta, kita, taka, taka, dim, ta, 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 dim, ta, ta, kita, taka, taka, dim, ta, ta. It can also be done by facing in front itself, where you can bring the other foot behind, twist it at the back. You can lift it as you see in Tanjavur and bring it as you see in Chidambaram. So this is the reconstruction of Mayura Lalitam, the grace with which the Mayura moves. Then we have one more I would like to show. Is the first one, actually I want to go back to the first one to show you all why scholars did call it as a frozen moment. They call it as a pose. And why so? Because the shloka, if you read the Sanskrit shloka, it says Vame Pushpa Putta. That means on the left side you keep the Pushpa Putta. Parshve Pada Agratala Sanchara. That is the one, any one of the foot will be on its toes. That is called Agratala Sanchara. It can be this or it can be the other one. So it is on the side. Tathacha Sannatam Parshvam. That is where the side, Parshva, is bent. Sannatam means bent. That becomes Tala Pushpa Putta, the first Karana where the flowers are being offered to the Lord by bringing it in a putta. Putta means a vessel. Pushpa Putta means a vessel to keep the flowers. So here, if you read the original Natyasastra, people would think it is a pose. That is why we need to understand that you have to read the commentary of the Abhinav Bharati. Those who are undertaking research now, please remember that the Abhinav Bharati is what should throws more light on the charis which have to be used. So, according to Abhinav Bharati, Abhinav Guptacharya's commentary, this is the reconstruction that Dr. Padma has given us. First, we have Tam, Tatakadinna, Tatim, Tatam, Kitatakatal, Pushpa, Putta, Poo, Vam, Tam, Tatakadinna, Tatim, Tatam, Kitatakatal, Pushpa, Putta, Poo. So the Tala Pushpa Putta moves towards the left corner, which is the Ishanam, that is the corner where Shiva is protecting the stage, and so the artist is supposed to go and offer flowers there. So that is just to elucidate how Abhinav Bharati becomes such an important commentary, such an important text for understanding the Karanas and Natyasastra. Please do not base your study on the English translation or any other translation. Mere translation is, after all, only the sutra can be translated. More than that cannot be given there. Now the 60th Karana called Dhola Pada has two positions. In the Tanjavur, both hands are on one side. The Dhola Pada, this is the Dhola Pada, both hands are on the other side. And the other temple, it is stretched out at the side. So, to give animation to this, it has been reconstructed as the swinging of the hand and swinging of the leg. So it becomes a dhola. Dhola is the swing. So there are the two variations. This is possible, and the other variation is where both hands move to the same side and they're brought. So we have, these are just few uh, few karanas that are I chose for elucidating what are karanas and how did the revival take place. The text gave us what are karanas. The sculpture gave us the static aspect of perennial performance. They were dancing all the time for the Lord. And the reconstruction has given us the dynamic activity of the performance itself. In the Karanas, there is the beauty that some Karanas combine, like two Karanas combine to form an Nritta Matrika, and so we have one beautiful one known as Vikshiptam, where there is a Vidyut Branta, which is like the lightning coming down, Vidyut. And Dandapada is where the leg is raised up like a stick, like a danda. And so here we have um, Vikshiptam, the 54th Karana. Yeah. One, two, so this Karana would lend itself for Uddata Prayoga. It is still very graceful. It has the element of Nritta with a lot of grace, but at the same time a lot of force. So it becomes Uddata and can be understood as something that you may relate to what is known as Tandava. So now, very quickly to sum up, because this time is running against it. So I want to, of course, the Kari Hasta, the 87th Karna, which was used in the invite, I'm sure many of you want to know how it goes. That is performed one, two, three, so the Kari Hasta is the hand of the elephant. The Hasta takes the, this is the trunk and the ear. And so beautifully, its graceful gati is embedded in the movement. There is a slight reducing of weight at some places, that is Anukirtana. You make it more beautiful for presentation. So that is Kari Hasta. There is an endless information to be given, but I think I should, why the Nritta Karanas are so very important. They were an integral part of Natya. Every character made an entry with the Karanas, whether it was a king or uh, Vidushaka, all of them had their specific Karanas with which they entered. So I want to show how very often many dancers ask, what is this that you keep saying about Vakyartha Abhinaya? Padartha Abhinaya, there are two types of representation. One is Padartha, where for every word we give the action. So if we do Vakratunda, the twisted Tunda, Mahakaya, the big body. So it is easy to understand because it's word for word action. Vakyartha is where an entire movement of the Karana represents what has to be spoken even without explaining much through lyrics. So here we have um, Vishnu coming on his Garuda in the you do that? Okay. In Vaishaka Rechita, in which you assume the Vaishaka Sthana and move with the Garuda Paksha Hasta. Yeah, so it goes Takatina, 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 and then Vishnu arrives on the Garuda, and with his, he descends in Apakranta using his chakra. He destroys the crocodile which is troubling Gajendra. So here you can see Gajak Kreditam being performed. So the entire thing becomes Vakyartha because Gajak Kreditam itself shows the play of the Gaja in the water, and that is what it's doing. And then Vishnu comes in uh, on his Garuda. We can show the Vaishaka Rechita where he is coming right across the sky. So you can shoot right across the stage doing this movement. Then, of course, Vishnu Kranta itself represents the movement of Mahabali when he took the Vishwarupa and measured the earth. So there is, with one measure, he measures the earth, and that is, and Vishnu Kranta is where he measures the sky. So the word itself uh, gives scope for Vakyartha Abhinaya by just that one Karana. And I think I have to kind of wind up because they've asked me to keep time for question answer. All that I can say is that Bharata has given us a treatise, a Shastra, a text, a manual, whatever you may call it, which contains every aspect of human life in it. It is so scientific that every uh, limb of the body is analyzed as anga or major limb, and upanga or the minor limb, which is next to the anga to help the anga move. And he gives us lot of shlokas which help us, which exhaustively give movement of that part of the body, just the neck, just the head, and the sides, the Pashwa. Very rarely in any place, importance is given to the side. They always talk of the waist, the chest, and the back. So Parshva is also given, and every part is considered to be exercised. The Vyayama has to be performed, and this gives you that kind of complete body control, the breath control, and control over what you see around you, because you can completely get involved in the patra, in the character that you want to present. And hence, the Nritta Karanas become a, um, a kind of not only body fitness, but it is something for our mental fitness. So it is much beyond yoga, because yoga, you internalize your energy. Here, your internalized energy is externalized with so much of mukha bhava that you're able to relate some things to the audience, who are able to get the rasotpatti. They are able to enjoy it as rasa anubhava. So this is what the Natyasastra is all about. And I owe all this knowledge entirely to my guru, Dr. Padma Subrahmanyam. I offer my salutations to you, Paduka, who has joined us today to bless us. And I thank uh, the society, the Museum Society, for having invited me to share whatever information I can. In fact, there was one small dance piece. Maybe some of you must be wanting to know how we put the Karanas into a dance piece. So maybe just one Nritta piece that she can show you before I conclude. That is, if there is time, she will also do a small item based on Shiva's dance. But first, I will just show you what an Angahara is made up of. Various Karanas are put together and an Angahara is created, which is like the jati of the southern styles and the bowls of the northern styles. So here we have one which is made up entirely of the Karanas. I just want to tell you here how Bharatanatyam is identified. In this, towards the end, she did a finish that was based on the adabas. So, how did Bharatanatyam come into existence is something that I must share, because this is something that my guru has given to all of us. She discovered and reconstructed and revived the Karanas of Natyasastra and synthesized them into the existing system of the regional form called Bharatanatyam. So that Deshi and this Marga technique of Natyasastra, the confluence of the two came to be known as Bharatanatyam. So the vocabulary became so vast. We have an entire vocabulary system of the adavas of Bharatanatyam and also all the 108 Karanas of Natyasastra. So in this jati itself, you saw that. And one small little musical piece we will present showing the performance in the Bharatanatyam style, where you will see lot of Karanas being interspersed with adavas to represent the movement of Shiva's dance. Are you getting it
மனித பிறவியும் வேணுவதே மாநிலத்தே தனதின தனதினோ தனதின தனதினோ ஆனந்த போராடினா ஆனந்த போராடினா அம்பலம் தனிலே அம்பலம் தனிலே அம்பலம் தனில் பொன்னம்பலம் தனிலே அம்பலம் தனில் பொன்னம்பலம் தனிலே ஆனந்தம் கூடாடினார் அம்பலம் பொன்னம்பலம் தனிலே அம்பலம் தனில் பொன்னம்பலம் தனிலே